And just like that, it's over. After a rough 3-12 start to SEC play, Jay Johnson's Tigers worked their way up, their season culminating with the Chapel Hill Regional and their final game pitted against North Carolina. Despite LSU coming back from an early deficit, UNC tied up the game in the 9th, ultimately winning in the 10th, claiming a 4-3 victory to end the season for the Tigers. A truly heartbreaking loss. However, some of us are already anticipating next year. To discuss the ups and downs of the 2024 season and give their thoughts on how Coach Johnson may be working to shape up 2025, Tiger Rag Magazine editor Todd Horne and Jeff Palermo, the news and sports director of the Louisiana Radio Network, welcome Hunt Palmer of ESPN 1045 and 1049 to shed some light on things. I'm your host, Jake McMains, and we'll get to that interview right after this.
Join in summer fun at your library. Every Friday in June at 7 p.m., families are invited to the main library on Goodwood for Movies on the Plaza. Teens can participate in our Cool Career Series and Teen Summer Film Camp. Plus, there'll be children's programs galore. Find out how to sign up for EBRPL Summer Reading Program at ebrpl.com/summer reading. ebrpl.com/summer reading.
Y'all ready? Yeah. Let's go. Come on.
Tiger Rag Radio is on the air.
Let's crank this thing up.
We're statewide, breaking down the latest happenings with LSU athletics.
This is us.
Hear from the coaches,
Put together a defense that puts us in a position to win the SEC.
the players,
Having fun and we working, baby. That's it, man.
the recruits,
Show some passion and some heart.
and those who cover the Fighting Tigers of LSU and the
All
SEC.
those things are going to be there, which are important.
It's 2 hours of nonstop LSU
What
talk.
a privilege. I mean, you get to represent LSU.
Tiger Rag Radio is brought to you by Cummins. Cummins creates power solutions that the world depends on. Helm Paint and Decorating. The paint experts of Louisiana. Louisiana Beef Industry Council. Max Home. And the East Baton Rouge Parish Library. Get ready to talk Tigers with producer Jackson Blackman and our hosts, Todd Horne and Jeff Palermo.
Three great players that are better people than they are players.
This is Tiger Rag Radio.
Back here on Tiger Rag Radio, Jeff Palermo along with Tiger Rag editor Todd Horne. Let's go to our first guest, the leadoff man, and that will be Hunt Palmer from ESPN 1045 and 1049, host of the Hunt Palmer Show that you can hear daily from 1 to 3 o'clock. Hunt joins us on the Max Home hotline, over 50,000 Max Happy homeowners and counting. Hunt, how you doing tonight? I know it's always always a little bit sad when an athletic season comes to an end, and especially when it comes to a baseball team that really fought its tails off down the stretch and ends up losing in heartbreaking fashion.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. It was heartbreaking last night. I'm a little sad. Sad that we got to go through an entire summer before they're playing sports again.
Yeah.
And last night was certainly a gut punch.
Well, me and Todd, we obviously debated the big decision from the game, and that was going with Gage Jump in the 9th inning. What's your take on it?
Look, it makes sense. Right and wrong is a little bit stern when you're talking about decision making in a baseball game. I can see sticking with Nate Ackenhausen, who had just struck out the side, and if you stick with him, you can still go to Jump a little bit later, knowing that there could be extra innings and you're getting real thin on the pitching side. And I can also see Jay Johnson arriving at the ballpark and saying, you know what, if we get to the 9th inning with a lead, whether it's 3-2 like it was or 11-10, which we thought it was going to be, and I've got a chance to get 3 outs with my best guy, I'm going to go to him. And I don't know that right and wrong is the right way to look at it. I understand what he was doing, and it just didn't work. I thought the pitch that Gage Jump made on the leadoff double was not a terrible pitch. He threw a breaking ball that got on the inner part of the plate and got down a little bit, and the kid didn't hit it that hard. He just flared it into left field, and they didn't really hit him that hard. Now the line drive that Milo caught was hit really hard, but he just didn't quite have it.
What do you think was the biggest difference in that game? I mean, I know most people would look at it and say, well, obviously Jake Brown's error in right field wasn't Gage Jump's necessarily not being able to close it out. What was the big difference?
I thought the biggest difference was the quality of at-bats throughout the late innings. I thought North Carolina was consistently putting together better at-bats than LSU was. And that told me that it was likely they were going to break through first. You know, LSU went 3 up, 3 down in the 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th innings, and then finally got a couple of walks and one Travinsky single in the late innings. They just weren't as competitive at the plate as North Carolina was, and eventually Carolina broke through.
Do you think that was a reflection of the pitching? But Helmer's had a great game, so what do you think that was? You just think LSU just wasn't as competitive?
I think that the guys that Carolina threw at LSU were a little better than the guys that LSU threw at Carolina. I think that those two relievers that shouldered that came in after the starter was taken out after 2 innings, those guys are all conference type relievers that had great numbers all year. And Ackenhouse has been pretty good, and certainly Jump has had a really good close to the season. But those guys were really tough, and that's the beauty of the format. If you are able to win that game on Saturday night, you're going to be able to save your guys, and the other team can't. And North Carolina got behind on Sunday and just held their guys. If they got ahead on Sunday, they'd probably gone to those guys, but they had the luxury with the game in their back pocket to hold those guys a day, and LSU did not have that luxury. That's why Griffin Herring came into the game in the 1st inning on Saturday afternoon. So that's just the beauty of it. They had more guys ready to go, and they were tougher on LSU than LSU was on Carolina.
Can you believe that 7 weeks ago we were sitting here lamenting LSU's performance, and legitimately yesterday it was a golden opportunity that they let slip through their fingers, so to speak, and they could have had a path to the national championship, to repeating, had they been able to make it back home to the Super Regional.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I said on my show today. I said it was crazy because, I don't think West Virginia is very good, and I think LSU had a great chance to win 2 games at the box next weekend. And then when the draw came out, I looked at it and saw that LSU would likely get Arkansas if they got to Omaha in the first game and face Hagen Smith, and that's a nightmare. Well, Arkansas is done. So you would have had an opportunity to get to Omaha and get in the driver's seat behind those 2 starting pitchers that have been so good. And it's crazy to think, they were 3-12 in the league, and you could stare down a realistic path to a national championship from there. And that's why this is my favorite sport, because a bad week and a bad month even doesn't kill you. But what happened to LSU is they had that bad month, and that forced them to go play the 4 seed overall. And then you get in that situation and you can't get out of it. So the whole season you're trying to set up your path, and LSU just didn't do enough over the course of 30 league games to avoid a really, really good team. They win 15 games. Maybe they get sent to Santa Barbara. Maybe they get sent to Tucson. Those teams not near the quality and caliber of North Carolina, and it's a different discussion. But they won 13, so here we are.
I think that most people that contact the 90-Day Lifeline are looking to be heard and to feel seen.
Anybody that calls here to talk about anything that has them upset, we will talk to them.
Even on our chat and text services, you will be actually chatting and texting with a real person.
We have enough resources to be able to help people in any type of situation.
We have helpline specialists that are trained to handle the variety of calls that we get.
It's a very laid-back thing. We're not judging anybody. We're just a listening ear that some people don't have.
So what does Jay do now with, obviously he's going to have to rebuild this roster. There's going to be a lot of changes, a lot of attrition to the pros, maybe some additional attrition. We've already seen 2 players leave in the transfer portal. What do you think he's going to do, and what's his focus going to be on rebuilding this roster?
I don't think he's going to put the phone down for a month. He doesn't have to game plan. He doesn't have to coach in practice. He doesn't have to coach in games. He can work the transfer portal exclusively, and it's open, and there are hundreds of kids in it, and he's going to go cherry pick the cream of the crop and try to overhaul this thing. You'll have a few guys back that were on this team, but they've got to inject some talent in here. It's, I think, probably better than 50-50 in my opinion. I don't have any information that Jared Jones will leave. That's my opinion. And if he does, you've got his home runs of 28, Tommy White's 24, and Travinsky 17 out the door, and nobody else other than Milam, who had a surge late, that showed any pop really at all. So you got to go find some power, some corner infielders, and then they've done a really good job of identifying starting pitchers in the transfer portal. Obviously, and Paul Skeens was that guy 2 years ago, and you can't expect that every year. But Jump and Holman were fantastic this year. So I would expect them to go add a really high-level talent starting pitcher for the rotation as well. Nothing's off the table. You've really got only a couple of guys who are locked into a lineup spot next year, and the rest is really available.
You just said that Jones is likely to go. He's like 50-50. And I mean, that's just your guess right now. I understand that. But Jeff and I were talking about it off the air. And I mean, if I'm Jerry Jones and I can make more money via NIL at LSU, he just learned how to hit a breaking ball within the last 4 weeks, as far as I can tell. I think I'd come back if I could make more money.
Well, I think he's hit the breaking ball a little bit longer than 4 weeks. I mean, he hit over 300. He hit 28 home runs. He's not going to get faster. He plays a non-premium defensive position, so he's stuck at first base, and they'll figure it out there. And I think someone's going to offer him 7 figures. I think because of that power tool and the way that he drew walks late and identified breaking balls better, and as a young player, I think that somebody's going to offer him $1 million. Now, I think that the only way he could really improve his stock is if he came back and hit 370 as opposed to 305. And that's possible. I don't know if he's going to hit more than 28 home runs, but I don't know that the NIL that he could collect here in Baton Rouge is going to rival what a team is going to draft him in the 4th round, 3rd round, and offer him $1 million. I just think that in my opinion, it's likely to me that he leaves. Now, Griffin Herring's a different discussion. He can really improve his stock as a draft eligible sophomore, so that'll be a different discussion.
Is Herring's improvement going to come through starting primarily?
He would need to develop a changeup and show he can start, and that would improve his stock in a big way. Now, we have seen LSU relievers who were really good in that role attempt to go start and not really be able to do it. We saw Zach Hess wasn't able to make that transformation, and we thought Thatcher Hurd was going to become from kind of a guy who showed some relief appearances last year to being the Friday night guy this year, and that didn't work out. So there's no guarantees that we'd get a weekend spot. But you heard on the broadcast over the weekend that Jay Johnson told the television staff that Griffin Herring would definitely be a starter next year, and that to me is just a big time recruiting pitch. He would certainly have that opportunity, and he showed he could extend. Obviously, what we saw on Sunday where he threw 81 pitches, so he could transform his game a little bit. Jared Jones kind of is what he is. He's going to be a big, strong, power-hitting first baseman, and that's already what he is.
What becomes of Hurd?
Oh, he'll go. He's got such unbelievable stuff, the spin rates and the velocity, and he's got enough on tape that somebody will take a flyer on him, and he doesn't want to come back and lose his leverage there. So I think that he'll move on to professional baseball.
Last question for you, as we're talking with Hunt Palmer from ESPN 104.5 and 104.9. I brought this point up to Todd here in the last segment. Last season, and I'm talking about 2023, because they had Skeens and they had Ty Floyd and they had a couple other guys, but a lot of the pitchers were kind of lost throughout this season, but it got covered up by the fact that that was one of the best offenses in college baseball history. Once again, 80%, 85% of the pitchers again this year look completely lost until some of them finally get it together towards the end of the season. 2 different pitching coaches, so you can't necessarily point the finger there, but what is the deal with that? Why is it that when you go back to the 3-12 start and where they were very non-competitive, very non-competitive in those Sunday games because they didn't have the pitching to even match up with those teams. Why have we seen this now 2 years in a row?
I don't have a great answer for you because I'm not there as they're developing. I could throw some things out there, like the fact that you're relying on a lot of transfers who have not been here, who have not played in the SEC, who have not seen this type of competition, who have not had this coaching. The coaching staff haven't been with them for a long time. They just dropped them in there. They got a fall, and then you go ride and figure it out, under the lights. It's not like it was where you brought in freshmen every year and then you had them for 3 years and you knew what you had by their second year on campus, and you worked off that. These are all new faces. Gage Jump, brand new. Luke Holman's brand new. Christian Little was working with a new staff last year. And then you've certainly got freshmen who are trying to acclimate themselves to the college game. It's a good sign, I think, that Jay Johnson has had his team playing great baseball late in the year, all 3 years he's been here. But yeah, I wish they would get in gear a little earlier because those SEC games in March count just as much as the ones in May.
Hunt, thanks a lot, man. We appreciate it. We'll be calling on you soon, and we'll be talking more football than baseball, but we appreciate your time, man.
It's your time to move things forward. U.S. Army Reserve.
All right, that's it for today's episode. Thanks to Hunt Palmer for his talk with Jeff and Todd. We'll be back next week, but until then, stay tuned to TigerRag.com for all your latest LSU sports news.